Welcome, everyone. We should have everyone on by now. We had a little bit of a delay getting started, but we are very excited to be here today. We are thrilled to have everyone join us. On behalf of NEI Global, we are excited to be discussing the state of diversity in commercial real estate, CRE. We will be talking about the challenges and opportunities we have to create an inclusive industry that represents the communities we all serve. My name is Genevieve Sanchez-Cozen, and I'm an industrial and land development commercial real estate advisor in my home state of New Mexico. My company, NEI Sun Vista, is located in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we are part of the NEI Global family of companies. As we all know, DEI is such a timely topic for the commercial real estate industry, and I know we were all looking forward to hearing from our expert panel. Without any further ado, we have three guests today that are paving the way for people from all different cultures and backgrounds. Let's say a quick hello to each of our panelists before we get started with our program. I'm happy to do the introductions. First up, we have Marcus Daniels, Vice President of NEI Michael, serving the Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia territories. Next, we have Timothy Merriman, Jr., Principal of NEI Miami. And lastly, we have Chris Ross, Senior Commercial Sales and Leasing Agent for NEI Ladder and Bloom, proudly serving the state of Louisiana, New Orleans, and the Baton Rouge region. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today to engage in such an important conversation. What we want to focus on today are three main topics, and the entire panel will be separated, and we'll talk about segment 1, 2, and 3. We're going to be starting off with where are we today and how did we get here? Then we'll dive into what are some of the barriers to entry in the industry? What are some of the existing programs that are helping support the DEI initiative in the commercial real estate industry? And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we'll be diving into what's next. What are some of the future solutions to making CRE a more inclusive industry and representative of today and tomorrow? At the end, we will review audience questions that were submitted in the chat box in Zoom. So audience, please feel free to join in at any time and add your comments. If you all are not aware, you'd go ahead and go into at the bottom of your screen and you will click on either to all panelists and go ahead and write your questions there. And I will be answering them and bringing them to our group throughout the conversation and then answering them at the end. So with that, let's jump right in and hear a little bit about our panelists. Can each of you take about 3 minutes to talk a little bit about what attracted you to the industry, what was your path to your current role, and one challenge that you had to overcome along the way? Marcus, let's start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Genevieve, and really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation today. Once again, my name is Marcus Daniels. I'm a Vice President at NEI Michael based in the Washington, D.C. and Maryland region. I've had a non-traditional path into becoming a commercial real estate broker. As a native of Prince George's County, Maryland, and a graduate of Morehouse College, I was only exposed to pursuing career opportunities in the banking and financial service industry as a finance major when I was in college. Upon graduating from Morehouse, I went to the University of Michigan and studied public policy and community development. In the height of the economic recession in 2010, where on a city block, out of 10 homes, about 9 of them were boarded up. And I asked myself, well, one, what am I doing here? And how could I use my skill sets and talents to be able to help transform communities and transform lives? And so it was at that point that I moved back home to Maryland in 2013. I became a chief of staff in the Maryland State Legislature, working on affordable housing issues, legislative matters for the member of House of Delegates. And that gave me a good sense in terms of how real estate and community development also is intertwined with politics and public policy. And from that vantage point, was able to transition into working in the community development space for a healthcare organization called Bond Secure Health System. And working in West Baltimore was one of the more challenged neighborhoods in the entire state of Maryland, working on affordable housing projects, as well as organizing classes for people to live a better quality of life. After that, I transitioned and was doing community development banking at one of 2 African-American owned banks in the state of Maryland, Harbor Bank of Maryland. And I was only there for about a month until one of my mentors called me and said, hey, I think you would be great in the commercial real estate brokerage business. I never even thought about going into commercial real estate brokerage, didn't have any family members in the business or any mentors.
Right.
And I took that meeting, and it was a great opportunity to be able to help to transform communities, quite frankly, communities that I grew up in where my friends and family live, and be able to create opportunities for them. And so that's how I landed at NAI Michael. I've been here for 5 years now, and it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. So really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for the question.
That's awesome, Marcus. I really like that crossroads you hit and the decision and the route you went about. I think we all came to commercial real estate in a few different ways and avenues. So thank you for sharing that. Next, Timothy, can you tell us a little bit about what attracted you to the industry and your journey?
I'm originally from North Carolina, graduated from Shaw University, and I came to Florida originally to pursue graduate studies. Got into Nova Southeastern, where I started working on my graduate studies, and transitioned into an MBA program with a real estate and development focus.
Hey.
While I was there, it was my intent to go back home and run a family member's portfolio and grow it. And during my third class, the professor said something that's really started the domino effect. It was, you don't need this degree to start a career in real estate. So I got on Monster, I got on Career Builder, LinkedIn, and I started looking at different careers, thinking I was going to be a project engineer, thinking I was going to do a few other things. And then I came across a thing called brokerage. And that was really the first time I understood that the same way people sell homes, there's actually also people out there selling commercial real estate and shopping centers, office buildings, anything very large. What enticed me was the fee amounts. And I was like, wait a minute, 6% of a $100,000 home or 6% of a $9 million building? I was like, let me go check this out. So I then started applying for brokerages in the South Florida area.
Okay.
I got picked up by one. 8 months in of me grinding out the phones, doing meetings, they actually closed their doors because that was in 2008 during the economic recession. That's when one day on a Wednesday, the partners, the original 4 partners of NAI Miami came in and says, good news, y'all are out of a job, but we have one for you.
Okay.
So 13 of us actually came over to NAI throughout the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I showed up with a box, literally with all my things in it. And I sat in the lobby and waited for them to tell me where to sit. I then immediately started doing this all over again on Monday morning, showed up, and here I am all these years later, realizing what potential it really had, and said, you know what, this isn't so bad, not without some battle wounds and some scars, but this isn't so bad. Let me stay. And from there, I built a career almost 14 years in, and I've gone from an associate, junior, working, doing all the things that the partners had me do, or senior brokers, to actually being one of the principals of NAI Miami, and now looking to give back to those that are look like me, sound like me, or maybe just come from different backgrounds that don't have the opportunity and aren't aware. That's my story in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. You nailed it. Our industry that people are not aware. What an awesome journey, and congratulations on that climb to the top. I just can't get enough of these stories and success. It's really, really awesome. Thank you, Timothy, for sharing with us. Chris, you're up to bat. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, Chris Ross here at NAI here in New Orleans. And I think my story is a bit more non-traditional than most, right? Because again, being from New Orleans, most of us started working out in the hospitality industry. So I actually started as a bartender. And so I'm working as a bartender, and I heard some clients talking about real estate. And that what got me interested in being a real estate agent. So in 1997, I became a real estate agent, and I was selling residential real estate. And so I'm sitting on, if anybody knows about selling residential real estate, you start off at that, especially at that time, you start off on desk duty, you start fielding calls and whatnot. So I'm sitting on desk duty one day, and I pick up this magazine, and it has all of the top commercial real estate agents in the city of New Orleans. It was like 20 agents, and it was no Black people, right? So that kind of got me thinking about it. Sure. And I said, Mayor, okay. And so I picked up the phone book, and again, I'm dating myself, and I And I called all of the top commercial real estate firms in the city, which is like 5. And nobody called me back. But it was just Latin Bloom at that time. And so my guy, Rich Stone, he was president of Latin Bloom at the time. He said, come in and meet with me. And I started and I met with him. It was a Tuesday, like say 1:30, 2 o'clock. I went in, I met with him. He said, man, you're great. Your energy's good. You seem like you'll be good for our business. I'll follow up with you. So he never did. So for the next 6 weeks, I called him every Tuesday at 1:30. every Tuesday at 1:30. He'll tell you this to this day. And for 6 weeks, I did that. And then eventually he came and said, man, come on. And that's how it started. And, that just tells you if given opportunity, most of us can succeed. So that's how it started. And started off as a generalist. And then I started specializing in hospitality around 2011, 2012. And so fast forward, I'm here today. We've done a number of hotel transactions in the city of New Orleans, over 1,000 rooms, probably $300 million or so of transaction volume. And I'm here, so.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chris. I love the persistence. I mean, because is that not the best quality we can have as brokers? That's wonderful. Thank you, all of you. Obviously, we all have unique backgrounds, and I love hearing how passionate you are about your journeys and your careers. So thank you, each one of you, for sharing with us. So now that we have introductions down and have a good handle on who our panelists are and their journeys, we're going to move into our first segment of questions. I'd like to hear from the panelists your perspective on the status of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the commercial real estate industry as a whole, and your thoughts on how we got there. Any volunteers to kick this off?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I can start us off. I think obviously there's been a tremendous amount of focus and attention around diversity, inclusion, and equity across all industries in light of the recent or fairly recent events with the George Floyd killing and just the racial tensions in the country. At this point, I think there's a tremendous amount of focus and energy around helping to solve some of the inequities that have existed for many years and continue to exist in the industry. Obviously, even to this day, in 2021, less than 2% of the commercial real estate industry is made up of women, and less than 2% of the commercial real estate industry is made up of African Americans. But when we think about the communities that we're active in, whether it's Washington, D.C., whether it's New Orleans, whether it's in New Mexico or in Miami, a lot of those communities are very diverse communities of color, and the industry should be more reflective of that. And so I think historically, there's been a lot of talk about doing this type of work and helping to expose more young people and college students and young professionals to the industry. But now there's, I think, a concentrated effort across the entire industry, not just here at NAI Global, but across a number of the top firms in our industry. So I think for me personally, for someone coming into the industry at my firm, being only one of 3 African Americans out of about 30 agents at that time, it was a little intimidating because I didn't have a family member in the business that I could talk to that would understand the day-to-day struggles that I may go through or the growing pains. But with that understanding, having strong leadership at my firm and having a firm that valued diversity and its previous president being an African-American gentleman, it really gave me the confidence to be able to say I have a support system here. And so what I think, we're doing and hope to do as a part of this Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council is to be able to tell those stories to other member firms across the NAI network and being able to provide a better environment and culture for bringing in more diverse talent and helping them thrive and be successful. We just don't want to be higher. We want to be able to come in and be successful and represent the communities that we serve. So I would start with that.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Marcus. Tim, can you give us your insights?
I'm actually extremely excited on where we're headed. I will tell you, especially using the same timeline that Marcus established, I'm starting to see more and more people of color, not just Blacks, but across the board, who are now becoming aware that this is a career. And you typically find it was a very small minority. Also, the fact that I'm finding also that more African Americans and Blacks were already in this space, but they were operating in the shadows. And they were like, listen, I'm doing this on my own. I've got a good little thing going. No reason to poke my head up, no reason to draw attention. And I'm seeing more and more step out, want to teach, want to give back. And they're reinvigorated because they were trying to do it on their own as a lone wolf or, this lone person. And now they're realizing there's more operating in the same space. There is some other people that are thinking very positively about being inclusive. And let's reach out because guess what? I'm not by myself anymore, just trying to make money and do my thing. No, I want to give back. So I'm extremely excited on where this is going and the amount of now collaborations that are going on between different organizations to make sure that this isn't something that's a buzzword for the next, 18, 36 months, and then it's gone.
Right.
So I'm extremely excited.
That's awesome. I agree. We are starting to see more awareness and I think the ultimate goal certainly is to keep this conversation going and keep this in awareness and to where it's just natural, right? And it's just integrated. Right. And we're finally, scratching the surface of making those big moves. So I think being here today, we are a part of those big moves. So thank you very much, Timothy. Chris, I would love to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, yeah. I mean, to Tim's point, I'm excited of where we're going because, like all of us, I've experienced where we've been, right? So for me, when I first started at my company, I would say there's probably 150, 200 commercial agents, and I was the only Black person. And I would say in the city of New Orleans, in Deep South, I mean, if you probably say 300, 400 commercial agents, again, I was the only Black for probably over 20 years. And it's crazy because I would meet people, say a residential agent, and not saying that I was all that, but I was somewhat mythical because they had never met a Black commercial real estate agent, right? So
right.
You talk to them and they're like in awe. So because they don't even realize that it's a career, to your point, right? So I speak to them and I talk to them, and I think initially a lot of folks, they get attracted to the numbers, like Tim said, the $1 million, $2 million, whatever, and that's fine. But then it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that because the majority of our business is relationship driven. And so you have to have those relationships either through college or just social or just your family members and whatnot to really help you and build your business. But at this point, I'm extremely excited. It's Timothy and Marcus were mythical to me. And so now I know that, there's more of us nationally that are doing this. And I'm extremely excited about the future of commercial African Americans in the commercial real estate space.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chris. Absolutely. I'd like to just tune in a little bit here, talking about mythical unicorns. And I think, women have a place in that space here in commercial real estate. We popped off the number of 2% of women in this industry. And, I was fortunate to come, my father was an engineer, so I would been introduced to the construction and engineering pretty early on. And that took me into environmental science and then on to landscape architecture. But I was really fortunate to do landscape architecture and urban planning for about a decade. And I was at the table, the conference table, mostly surrounded by men. And, it's a tough place to be. I think it built some grit in me early on. And I think that, for women in this industry, it's obviously a male dominated industry, and others, which is very slow to building the gender gap here, and it's right along with construction and real estate development, our sister industries. But I think women are continuing to break the mold of what it means to be a professional in the male dominated industry. But I think at the end of the day, it's persistence, knowledge, and grit that women, men, all cultures and everybody needs to be successful in this career. But I have to tip my hat off to organizations like Crew New Mexico, which supports women in commercial real estate to connect young women on what is in the industry and what opportunities are available, and furthermore, connecting them to mentorship. So I just, wanted to talk a little bit about that. And also in New Mexico, the growth of women in commercial real estate and in business is outpacing men. And so I'm very fortunate to be in a state that women have an opportunity. And I think for women on, culture, race, no matter what it is, the commercial real estate industry really provides flexibility for family, and family is a common denominator between all of us, and an income that can only be matched by your efforts. And those are two amazing things that can benefit all of us. And so those are the attributes I feel that we need to bring out and continue to show to everyone and have that opportunity available to everyone. So thank you all for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Just want to take a pause here for people in our audience. Please take this time. If you have any questions, I have a few coming in. Please go into your chat, drop a question for any of our panelists. We will have opportunities to review these questions at the end. So with that, we're moving into segment 2. Again, we really appreciate everyone's perspective on the industry. So on segment 2, we want to talk about what are some of the barriers to entry in the commercial real estate industry and other challenges for diverse talent. I think we kind of scratched that surface just now by saying, hey, I looked at this picture and there was no Black presence on there. And, what does that make us feel and our desire to go into this industry? So, with that, Tim, I'm going to start with you on this one. What are kinds of programs that are in place or being rolled out to create awareness or a more culturally diverse commercial real estate industry? Is there anything happening in your office, larger organizations that you might be involved in? What are you seeing on the ground?
We are seeing some opportunities there. I've been actually named the head of recruitment for our firm, and one of the mandates was let's go out and look for a more diverse, not just African Americans, not just Black, but let's also start to do this whole stratification of, let's look at which Hispanics are not represented, which pockets of women aren't represented. Let's start looking to see where those areas are. And then also addressing, like you asked about the barriers. I think the two major barriers are timing, because a lot of times you find out about this. I didn't find out about this until I was 30 years old, 2 children, family, and I was used to a certain income level and lifestyle, and I had to walk away from it. It's hard to sit there and convince certain people from certain backgrounds to walk away from what they know and selling them on a dream that they may or may not make it. So I think if we sit there and we start to educate children with the National Black MBA Association, if you start looking at REIS, which we're all a part of, and they have a youth mentorship program for high school students of diverse backgrounds, and you start them off where it's not an idea that's an afterthought after you get out of college, but maybe this is a career path that when I'm 13, 14, 15, right, I can start preparing for, because this is interesting to me. And you also are able to pair them up with mentors, people that look like them, that they can reach out, feel, touch, talk to, and they see that these people are real people. Right. That was some of the other challenges, because guess what? When you're coming from one of these backgrounds and you walk into a room like Chris talked about, and Marcus, you're a little bit more fortunate, but I'm sure you've done it too, where you're one of 400, yeah, it's a tad bit intimidating. Let's retreat back to what we know, where I can, get along with folk and I know the lingo. That's another thing we have to prepare. The other barrier is relationships. A lot of times you'll find that our contemporaries, they rely on mom and dad's relationships, grandma and granddad's relationships, family relationships, from, cousins or uncles, that quite frankly, when we come into this, we don't have. So we're literally starting off with absolutely nothing except whatever scholastic knowledge that we have. And we have to then put ourselves into these places and seek them out. And I'm talking about seek out some rooms that you probably wouldn't have never imagined your wildest dreams going into. But guess what? Now you're getting there, because the other mental gymnastic that you have to do is, I belong there, even though I don't look like it. And you've been told your entire life you're not supposed to be there. That's that psychological conditioning. Guess what? I belong there. I've got all the tools. I can do this. And I think those are the major barriers. Psychological, it's going to be family relationships, and then just timing. Timing when you actually realize that this is a career path and you're able to jump in.
Those are great, Tim. Wonderful. I couldn't agree with you more. This just spot on. It really is. Chris, can you give us some insights? Give us your thoughts on this.
Sure. For me, I see that a lot of the clients are more open and honest in having conversation with you about giving opportunities to African Americans. But I could just tell you that I'm representing, one of the largest grocers in the country, and I had a very candid conversation with the CEO of the company, and he said, we need to be more intentional here, especially if we're looking to push into African American communities. So with that, that's been helpful, and I've got a couple other clients because of that too. But again, for here in the Deep South, honestly, I think there's still opportunity for where I am in New Orleans, right? Because I'm an anomaly, and so I've taken on as a personal mission to get more of us into the field. I don't see enough, again, because there is none, right? There's just no one here but me and maybe 2 or 3 others now. I've taken on as a personal mission to disrupt the business, to bring more residential agents into the fold, to communicate to them, and because the commercial real estate industry can be very insular. It's all about the information and where the opportunities are and where the listings are. So I've been more open, and if a residential agent calls me, I'll have a conversation with them. I won't try to take their deal and say, well, just refer it to me and I'll do it and give you 25% or whatever it is. I've been more intentional saying, look, let's work this together. Let's do it together, and then give them the real, insight on how to get it done. As far as, the obstacles, for me, commercial real estate industry just as a whole, regardless of race, is a very hard business to break. On the brokerage side, it's a very hard business to break into, especially if you don't have relationships, because you can go for a long period of time without making any money.
Absolutely.
So, working through that is something that where I see the opportunity is in the business, because it's not a lot of, I say that there isn't, but it's not a lot of African Americans who can go 6-9 months without making any income, right, and stay in the business. So that's something that I see we need to think about. And here in the Deep South, that we need to be more intentional about it. Again, I'm taking it as a personal mission to try to disrupt.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chris. Absolutely. I love the idea of just when they least expect it, integrate them in, open the door for them, give them, pass this on, get them integrated. I couldn't agree more. Marcus, I'm curious to hear your perspectives.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with what both Chris and Tim just had to say. And, from my perspective, I think organizations like the Real Estate Executive Council, REIS, amongst others, are really, they've done a tremendous amount of work over the years to try to move the ball forward and creating a safe space and an organization for diverse talent and minorities to be able to talk about how to create more opportunities for those moving forward. I think for a lot of people who look at getting into the commercial real estate industry, they often will say, well, what's the first step? And obviously that first step is something that all of us have done, and that's just going online and looking for a course so we can get our pre-licensing course done, and then getting our real estate license. And people think, well, if I get my real estate license, that's all I need, and that I'm on my way to make millions of dollars. Well, it's not that simple. A lot of the technical skills and a lot of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis are not taught in those classes. And for someone like me, who had the pleasure of going to Morehouse College, there was not a real estate class that specifically talked about brokerage and development. We had real estate finance courses, but there was no concentrated effort to encourage students to go into commercial real estate brokerage. A lot of us were sold the dream of going on Wall Street, working for Goldman Sachs or working for a hedge fund or private equity firm. But those opportunities just were not presented to us. And as a part of it, the infrastructure wasn't in place to be able to make sure that the students had the technical skills that they needed. So when they had, we had firms coming to campus for interviews, for summer internships, or for full-time opportunities, we weren't as prepared. And so, as I had mentioned before in this timid reference, it's about exposure at an early age. I had joked in our planning call that I think a lot of people are very familiar with watching Bravo, and it's probably seen this show $1 Million Listing, the show House Hunters. But oftentimes you don't hear the stories from commercial real estate brokers, the individuals that are helping to really transform the communities that we live in, where we eat, the healthcare resources that we have, the amenities that we enjoy, and the spaces that we experience with our families and friends. And so from my perspective, I think the exposure piece is important, the education piece is important, but just being more intentional about telling our story. The emergence of social media and technology certainly allow for us to be able to do that in a more efficient and concentrated way. And I think there's a lot of more stories that probably are needed to be told, even beyond the four of us here on this call today.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Marcus. I'd like to throw something in there. I think the fact that we all have to figure out what we're going to do for the rest of our lives at the age of, 19 is a struggle, and whoever made that decision. My big thing is really being able to get into high schools and, put this profession and the commercial real estate industry and even sister industries alongside of other professional opportunities and really get them starting to think about it and be a part of it. I think all of us that are in the industry now, we spend a lot of our time in our career filling in those educational gaps and striving to find those mentors. I'm telling you, mentorship is everything in this industry. And I think we can all attest to that. And even at the smallest scale, if all of our audience leads from here, what are those little things that you can do? And I think you all mentioned it is that mentorship. If you can all somehow give a little bit mentorship, it's the sum of the little bits that I think could also still really move the needle. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate that. Got a great question here. One of our audience from Justin, and this is to all the panelists, so I will read it to you. Thank you for this. I am new to the industry, and I am also the only commercial real estate associate that is African-American in my area. I'm struggling with balancing my career and also the needs of the community. I feel that I'm being stretched into more of the concerns and needs that my community has on a political and economic development scale. How were your experiences when your community found out that you were in commercial real estate? Great question. Great question. I'll let whoever's ready to tackle this. It looks like Timothy. It's all yours.
I'll tell you, it was funny because when I told people I was in commercial real estate, I think it took probably over a decade for anybody to understand what the heck I was talking about.
Right.
And I kept getting, family members didn't understand. It took me actually sitting down with close friends who were in the financial sector, who were extremely successful, to sit them down and explain, this is what I do, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I get up for in the morning. It took that kind of intentional, and it was funny, one of the principals here actually told me to do this Sunday morning at 11 o'clock when they don't have anything going on. Take them out to brunch, ask them first what they do, get an understanding, because you're probably not sending them opportunities, but then also tell them. And it was only after I did that, did I start to really make inroads within the African-American community here, where they started to understand, because like these guys have said, I was the only one that they knew of. And I think there's only 3 in South Florida. So you're talking about all these brokerage houses over 3 counties, and there's only 3 of us being represented. So it took a while to get people to understand. And some of them, it took general reminders of what this is. And no, I don't sell houses unless you want to sell the entire block, then to a developer. And then it started to continuously click.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Next.
Marcus?
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm just going to say that, you have to be, my thing is, I don't know, I put my feelings in my pocket in the beginning of the morning and come back later on, right? So being told no to me is just a thing. I don't know if I have a mental block or whatever, but it doesn't deter me from things. So I think, being tenacious and just keep moving in the business is important. And tell you what was very helpful to me when I first started is the owner of my company, Ladder and Bloom. I mean, you got to, you may not know who Ladder and Bloom is, but we're a huge a huge residential firm in the region. And there's over 3,000 agents that work for Ladder and Bloom in different iterations of companies. And the owner of everything, Bob Merrick, when I first got into business, he called me, and when we were having a conversation, he said, "Look, if you have any problems, you call me." And so what that meant was, coming from him, was that, look, just put it on the table. There's a lot of racism in the business, right? And so people won't call you back. People won't give you information. People will lie to you about what the commission splits are. People will tell you that there's not, all of that happens. And so I was very fortunate not only just have a mentor in him, but someone who gave me some coverage and said, if you ever have any problems, you call me. And so that went a long way for me in the very beginning of my career, in having him as a resource for doing that. Because if I say, hey, I spoke to Bob Merrick, that changes the conversation when you're talking to someone. So I think, seeking those partnerships, relationships, mentorships, whatever you want to call it, is very important.
I love the persistence again, Chris. I really do. I think that's one of the key elements in here. You got to be thick-skinned, you got to keep going and be persistent, and it will pay off. It really will. These gentlemen are certainly results of that. Marcus, what you got for us?
I couldn't agree more. I would just say I ran into the same experience that Chris and Tim have experienced as well, and particularly the question of what is a commercial real estate broker. I come from a community development background, so I often tell people, and I think you all would agree with me, that we're more than just real estate agents. We're more than real estate brokers. We are literally community developers. We're bringing businesses into communities. We're helping to transform neighborhoods. We're bringing new housing and amenities and resources to communities that really need it the most as well. And so that is a unique privilege. It's a very unique opportunity. And I think when you frame it in that way, it helps people to understand it from a different perspective. One, understanding that for most of us whose families never had the opportunity to be in the business, that we have a great sense of commitment and responsibility to make sure that we are very thoughtful about what we're doing in our business, and making sure that it's not a situation where people think that we're just chasing the dollar, but we're really chasing impact and purpose, more so than that. And so I can tell you that when I first started in the business, that was something that I had to overcome, the fear of, hey, walking into a business that may have been around for 100 years. It's a majority white firm, and I'm trying to sell their $5 million office building, and this is one of the biggest assets that they have, and it's and I'm coming in, and I'm a young guy. I don't have any, I have a few gray hairs, but I look really young, and just getting the confidence to be able to get them to list a property with me. I will tell you, I had a great opportunity to work with a union here in the DC area that does a ton of work across the region. And I had to go to the union meeting, and the union had about 400 members, mostly white members. And I had to present to the entire union and say, hey, this is why I want to be your representative, and this is why I'm going to sell your property, and this is how it's going to help increase your pension fund, and all of that. And I can remember the meeting went very well. I hit all of my points. I made sure to show that I could add value from other brokerages in the region. And afterwards, everyone said, man, you did a great job. We look forward to working with you, but you better sell our property. Yeah. And I remember the opportunity, and I did sell their property, and subsequently 4 other properties for them. And that gave me the confidence to be able to go out and do it again and again and again and again. And so you have to take that first step. To the brother who asked the question, take that first step and move forward with faith and confidence, and understand that we were exactly where you were, brother, and feel free to use this as a resource, because as I mentioned before, oftentimes we don't have a lot of people that we can talk to that have been through this. So it's important that we leverage those relationships and have those conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for asking the question. Please continue with your questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end, but we are resources here. As Marcus said, we will have our contact information with email addresses and phone numbers at the end for you to see. So we're going to move into our last segment, and let me get here. In segment 2, we talked about some of the programs in place to address DEI in the commercial real estate industry and what is being done. And so lastly, in segment 3, we want to ask the most important question of today's panel, which has to do with accountability. So who is accountable for the changes we are asking of our industry, our businesses, and more broadly, society? Who is responsible? In short, what else needs to be done and who needs to do it? So with that, and our last question, who would like to kick us off?
I'd like to kick us off with this one. I think over the course of the past 18 to 24 months, there's literally been billions of dollars publicly that have been we're going to be committed to solving the diversity, equity, and inclusion issue. There have been recent reports that really less than 10% of those funds have been deployed. And so when we talk about accountability, what we're really talking about is making sure that people do what they say they're going to do. Because that's what we're held to that standard when we are working with our clients. And so we expect the same thing from companies and leaders in our industry. I can tell you that for a long time, these conversations have happened, not just in the real estate industry, but across the board. But with the emergence of technology and just the heightened focus on increasing diversity, having the key performance indicators and having the numbers to be in data to be able to track the performance, to track the results, and being able to adjust accordingly is something that I think is going to be critically important, both for the short-term and long-term goals and objectives. In my opinion, I think that as we continue to move forward with this movement, it is going to be a tremendously important, not only for the leaders of our organizations to share this same philosophy and mantra, but then also the clients as well, because I've literally run into clients that will ask me, what is your company doing around diversity and inclusion? How many interns have you hired from historically Black colleges and universities? What is you all's recruiting looking like for women and for Hispanics and Asians and for those in the disabled community? All of those things are really important because we serve those organizations that work with those populations. And so in my opinion, I think that it's dependent upon all of us. It's dependent upon the community. It's dependent upon the agents and the brokers. And it's also dependent upon the leaders of our organization. And so I think the scorecard that has been created to be able to track the progress is something that is going to be a great measuring tool for us, both in the short term and the long term. And honestly, I have to say this, the media coverage around these issues is critically important as well, because obviously, we can have this conversation with 100 to 200 people, but when it goes into the Huffington Post or the Wall Street Journal, or the New York Times or the Washington Post, it's amplified in a different way. And that is the type of awareness and accountability that's needed as well to make sure that people say, they do what they say that they're going to do, and we hold them accountable.
Couldn't agree more. Tim?
I'm going to mirror what Marcus said. I think it's on all of us, the businesses, the clients, as well as the individuals. The businesses to realize where there are pockets and opportunity to find and seek out individuals from diverse backgrounds, because I think that also ties into profitability. If you're not looking over there, you're leaving market share, because there are individuals over there that have that kind of cash laying around. They're just not spending it with you because you haven't connected with them.
Right.
Clients, the same thing. And also individuals like the three of us who have now gotten to the point where we understand what's on the other side, to go back into the communities and educate those that are coming behind, and making sure that they have the skill set that when they show up to the table, that they are prepared and they're not coming to without the skill set. So then they feel like the door is shut in their face. I always grew up with, if you don't make it, there's 20 other folk behind you that won't make it, because you're not there to give them the leg up or open the door. So it's on us. The onus is on us as well to make sure that we're educating others in other areas about what this is. And I think also that ties into knowing that at some point we don't want to just get the carve out, but we want to be able to get the skill set to set at the big table with the folk that are making the real money, who are doing the real deals, not that 10 to 15%. So at some point, we want all these groups to understand, we want to make sure that we're sitting there preparing us and folk like us and other diverse backgrounds, that we can compete not for the carve out, but for the real proposal, the real RFP.
Right.
That's the other piece. And to make sure that all three understand that.
Yes. Thank you. Good perspective. Chris, can you chime in on this as well?
Sure, just build on it and kind of like a little bit different spin, but doing a deeper dive on it, again, I think, supply chain is going to be very important. Having conversation with your folks, explaining to them the opportunity. I like what Tim is saying, and I don't want just a carve out, right? I want a real opportunity. I don't want just some DBE set aside that you have. I mean, if given the opportunity to compete with the guy that's next to me, I feel that I could be successful. And for me, again, this is where the deeper dive goes. When I'm working on, let's say, a hotel development deal, I've done a lot of those, right? My client, if he or she's buying the property, I said, okay, we have this property locked up. Who are you going to use as your architect? Who are you going to use as your general contractor?
Right.
Who are you going to use as your landscape architect? Challenging them to go deeper. So you've given me an opportunity. Yes, great, thank you. But how do we go deeper than that? So I can take the opportunity I've been given and spread it around a bit more, right? And lastly, with that, us as commercial real estate agents and people who are in the business, I've been trying to be more intentional on educating my client base on what commercial real estate is, right? So I may have a guy, he owns 20 or 30 houses, great, but how do I get him to own an industrial site? How do I get him to own a retail property? How do I let him know that this is a space for you? Right. So really trying to convert investors or folks who have traditionally not even looked at commercial real estate from that side. Here is opportunity over here for you, and let's figure out something there.
That's awesome, Chris. I really like, you're coming at things from different angles. I like it. I really, really like that angle of integrating people into the commercial real estate in a not so obvious way. So thank you very much. Chiming in, I think leaders in our NEI global organization, obviously these conversations are wonderful, and in our individual firms, leadership is essential, and we're all kind of in our own pocket offices, and it's critical for our leadership to have these conversations with HR and to have these conversations with their brokers, because as brokers we are recruiters for the company. We're the ones boots on ground and recruiting, and so I think if it's an understanding through all of our groups of how to support this, I'm very lucky. We have a female broker by the name of Debbie Harms, and she has been a mentor. She just fosters an incredible learning environment for all of the young brokers and just opens up doors for us to fill in those gaps. And so I think leadership is a strong component here, as well as all of the awesome everything, everybody included in here as well. So that wraps up our third segment. We are going now into Q&A, and I'm scrolling through here, and there's some great questions. And so let's start off with this one. And we look like we are on about the last 10 minutes. So what I might do is have each of you address one of these questions. And maybe if someone has something to tune in on the panel, please do. So this one comes in, and they are asking, does NAI offer mentoring opportunities for associates on the property management side? I am the only African-American in my entire office brokerage and have a strong interest in growing into brokerage, but am not seeing mentoring or growth opportunities for this. Any suggestions would be great. So I'll kind of just take a stab at this one as kind of more of an overhead. So, I would first go to the person that has the direct impact on your life, and that is your leader at your office, and ask them and tell them, what you're interested in doing and what opportunities are there. That would be the first person to go to. If there is a broker in your office that being in property management, we work closely with our property managers. So hopefully you have a relationship, or maybe there's one broker that your personality is like, or you admire them in a certain way, go talk to them. Have that awesome conversation of, hey, I'm interested. Can you help me break this boundary? And secondly, I would say reach out to these gentlemen. Clearly, they have paved the way and understand what you're going through. And I am sure they would absolutely love to have a conversation with you and be that support and be able to be there for you as you kind of navigate yourself both through your office and then in the bigger world of commercial real estate. I love that question. Reaching out's the first step. Does anyone have anything to add on to that that might be a resource?
Genevieve, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to mirror exactly what you're saying. Absolutely reach out to as many people as possible. The one thing that I have found in commercial real estate is people that are absolutely passionate about this want as many people as possible to get into it.
Yes.
So the more you talk to us, and not just, someone that look like you, but the more you talk to people and they see that you have a real passion and a real interest, they're going to talk your head off and they're going to try and figure out how to get you to come over. So sit down and talk to someone that's on the other side, how they got there, and what can they do to mentor you so you can be there too.
Absolutely. And also, I've gone to it several times. I'm sure you all have the NEI Global Convention. We're back up in person next year in New Orleans. See if there's an opportunity that your company may be able to sponsor you or split sponsorship or something. And wow, talking about an arena where you can just get to meet people in person might be a great opportunity. So thank you for that question.
Can I add one thing to that?
Please do. Please.
Okay,
do.
yeah, I would say, and I know Marcus can attest to this. This is a gift and a curse. I ask for forgiveness, not permission sometimes, and so you have to. If there's no program there, create one, and then tell them how they need to participate with you in it. So
Awesome.
I think that's a way to get what you want to get done.
Pave your own trail. Pave your own trail. That's a great advice. Okay, next question. Hey guys, I'm on a newly developed diversity committee at my CRE firm. We're having some issues getting serious traction outside of light programming and monthly newsletters. Do you have any advice on maintaining momentum, engaging executives, and avoiding burnout? Great question.
I'll take this one. I think and I'm glad that you've joined this panel. Coming from a different firm and are part of the movement to increase diversity and inclusion and equity in the space. One of the things that I can share as a part of our efforts here at NAI Global in creating these opportunities and this council and programming to address these issues is to have experts and consultants that are actively working in the space that have the experience of building these type of programs at different firms. In addition to that, I think it's important to gather data and information. And so being able to do a survey for your employees or for the individuals at your firm to be able to see what type of program are they looking for? What are the challenges that they're experiencing? How can you add value to what they're doing? So they'll take an hour, 2 hours or 3 hours out of their week to be able to participate on a committee, to help to organize an event, to go to a recruiting event, to speak to a group of high school students and creating the energy. And so oftentimes I think it's important to understand your why and being able to have that mission statement and that vision statement in terms of keeping people excited and motivated. So feel free to connect with all of us here, because I think what we are looking for is not only for NAI Global to push this ball forward, but other firms as well that may not be as further along in the process, but have a desire, or individuals in their firm having a desire to do so. So please reach out to us.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marcus. We had some great insight here from one of our background panelists that's helping us out. Great resource here. United Negro College Fund is a great nonprofit to connect to students of color. Also, there are affinity groups on most college campuses. Other great resources include independent educational consultants who work with high school students on college administrations and career advice. Reach out to Black fraternity or sororities, research the ratio of high school students to counselors, and note that there are a few who are BIPOC. It matters when students have counselors of their own background and ethnicity that they can connect with. So thank you very much, Gary, for that. Appreciate that input there. me see if we have, yes, we're going to give everybody's names and contact information here at the end. Let me just do one kind of, this past week, Crew National posted their annual scholarship recipients. And there obviously needs to be more groups of diversity. So we are getting some good advice here to, reach out to any opportunity in the industry, sign up for scholarships and put yourself out there for education. And as Chris said, pave the way yourself. Okay. I think we are at our last minute. Wow. I think I did it. What a thoughtful and wonderful session, everybody. I want to say thank you to our panelists and our participants today for your interest in the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion of the commercial real estate industry. We'd like to encourage you to get involved with one or more initiatives in your area. And, we also want to thank NAI Global for giving us the opportunity to talk to our other groups, talk to the commercial real estate industry. And I think we all have been passing this link around. So I'm just delighted to see who's on the other end and has been able to be a recipient of this meeting. On your screen right now, we have our contact information for Marcus, Timothy, and Chris, as well as myself. Please take a screenshot of that information. And I think we might be able to get that out to someone else. So if you haven't already, please take the time to do that, get our contact information. And if you have any questions, please reach out to NAI Global and they can put you in contact with any of us. If you are needing any commercial real estate services in our respective regions, we would all be delighted to talk to you and help you or connect you with the right group for the asset class you're looking for. And I think that concludes everything. Thank you all. Thank you, panelists. Your expertise and insight was delightful and just really eye-opening, and I certainly appreciated it. So thank you, and thank you, NAI Global, and to all of our attendees. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you.